It was 2 years ago that Henry Townsend moved into room 302 of South Ashfield Heights, an apartment building in the medium-sized city of Ashfield. Henry was happy and enjoying his new life. But 5 days ago, something strange happened. He began to have a recurring dream each night. One other thing. He couldn't leave room 302. That piece of music that we heard right there at the beginning, playing over the narration, is one called Melancholy Requiem. And we only get a snippet of it there. It's actually one of my favorite pieces on the Silent Hill 4 soundtrack. We didn't get the full extent of it in that scene, but it has this very cool, moody quality to it, and the drum rhythm has a nice groove to it. But yeah, so we start off with this piano riff that is going. So we seem to be in some scale of E, because we've got, and it's confirmed when that synth, that low bass synth comes in. We've got E, A, B, and E creating this kind of like E sus chord, which is part of the reason I like this song. It starts us in this place of uncertainty. Most of the time when you're hearing music, you're hearing something that's clearly in like a major key or a minor key. Major being what we generally hear as happy sounding, minor key being what we generally hear as sad. But this starts us off in this place where we've got the first, fourth, and fifth scale degree. And it gives us a sense of like, okay, this could go in either direction. And then that synth comes in low, and it's like, okay, this is getting kind of dark. On the soundtrack, a keyboard sound comes in that is a Mellotron string. At least to my ear, that's what it sounds like, a Mellotron string. The Mellotron is like one of the earliest examples to me of at least in the 20th century, of a sampled instrument. And we're going to be talking about samples a lot in this game. Samples in music can refer to anything from like an instrument that has like each note sampled from a particular noise, like it was recorded and then it's spread out over the keyboard so that anywhere you play it on the keyboard, you will have that tone in the pitch that you need. Sampling can also refer to taking a piece of a song and using that in a different context. Like you see it a lot in hip-hop music, rap, industrial music. Akira Yamaoka specifically uses a lot of samples in his music, partly because that was the prompt that was given to him when he was writing the original Silent Hill. Was we want something that has like a Nine Inch Nails, Portishead kind of vibe, and both bands that use sampled material in their music. And it was also a convenient way to like generate the effects that he wanted very quickly. But all that to say, Mellotron is an instrument, a keyboard instrument that was developed, I want to say in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, that was a small keyboard that literally had a tape for each each key in the keyboard that would loop around and play a particular tone. If you've ever listened to classic rock music, particularly classic progressive rock from like the 60s and 70s, you have probably heard a mellotron, whether it was mellotron strings or mellotron flute. Mellotron strings, I believe, are used at the beginning. Like one of the most famous examples in progressive rock is Watcher of the Sky by Genesis, that starts off with this big mellotron string intro. I think the strings in Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson also could be mellotron, or if they aren't mellotron on the recording itself, they probably played it with mellotron live. That was part of the creation of it, was so that you could get that orchestral sound in a live setting when you didn't have a full orchestra. Led Zeppelin also used mellotron flute to play the beginning of Stairway to Heaven live when they didn't have an actual flute player. And the reason that you still have the mellotron, and it's become kind of like a featured instrument in a lot of like contemporary rock music, or in this case like soundtrack stuff, is because of that, the way that it generates a tone, like each note being like a tape that plays a note as if it was being played by like a section of an orchestra. It gives this almost like nostalgic old-time cinema quality, and it also has a lot of like defects and artifacts that give it that kind of character and imperfection and almost like grungy aesthetic, especially in a context like this. So that plays over the piano riff that we heard in this opening section, and it further complicates the key or mode that we're in, because first we get the piano, which is doing the whole, where we're in the suspended chord. We're not sure if we're in major or minor. And then we get the strings, which have this, which are playing in the scale that pretty clearly puts us in a minor key in that first phrase. And then the second phrase, we get this, and that note is not part of the E minor scale. And it gives that almost that more sinister quality. That actually puts us in E Phrygian, I believe. And I'm still doing research on like the rest of the music in the game, but I think this is a game where Akira Yamaoka likes to do a lot of that modal mixture stuff. Like we kind of heard it in The Last Mariachi, whether it was intentional or unintentional, with the combination of the mariachi guitar being recorded essentially in one key and that synth tone is suggesting a different key, and those combined together to create this kind of like dual key mode type thing. And then here we've got this progression in the course of Melancholy Requiem of first we're like, okay, we're kind of not sure what key we're in. We've got this suspended E chord. Then it's like, oh, the strings come in. We're in E minor, okay. And then the strings add in that flat second, and now it's like, oh, we're not even in E minor. We're in something perhaps a little darker than E minor, E Phrygian. And even though we don't get that string part in there in the game, I think I like this piece being like one of the first pieces of music, being literally the first piece of music we hear in the game after the title, the menu music, because I think it helps create that sense of uncertainty that Henry must be experiencing, or whoever the narrator in this opening section is, because as we will come to discover, perhaps it isn't Henry.